Marksmanship Hunter has insane burst potential, but only if you know how to set it up. In this guide, I'll show you how the spec actually works in Mythic Plus and help you avoid the mistakes that make it feel clunky or underwhelming. Unlike Beast Mastery, Marksmanship doesn't rely on a pet to deal damage, and in fact, you don't even have access to Call Pet by default. Instead, you gain a unique passive called Eyes in the Sky, which replaces your pet with a spotting eagle that marks your target with Spotter's Mark as you deal damage. You can spec back into using a pet through Unbreakable Bond, but it's considered a DPS loss. At its core, the spec revolves around three simple ideas. 1. Keeping your abilities on cooldown. Most of your power comes from cooldown-based abilities, especially Aim Shot and Rapid Fire. Aim Shot is a hard-hitting ability that deals massive single-target damage. It has 2 charges and a short cooldown, so you're encouraged to weave it in frequently. Even though Aim Shot is expensive, it contributes less to your overall focus usage than Arcane Shot, mainly because it has limited charges. Rapid Fire is a channeled ability that fires a barrage of shots and gives you a huge chunk of your resource back, which ties directly to the second point, managing focus. Your focus bar is your main resource, and while it passively regenerates over time, a huge chunk comes from Rapid Fire and Steady Shot. Arcane Shot is your default focus spender, and most of your focus will go into it, especially when empowered by Precise Shots, which makes it deal double damage and cost 40% less. Precise Shots is a passive gained from Aim Shot that lets your next Arcane Shot hit harder and cost less. There's also an important passive called Streamline, which activates after every rapid fire. It reduces the cast time and focus cost of your next aim shot. Then there's Steady Shot, your filler. It doesn't do much damage, but it generates focus when everything else is on cooldown. You don't want to press it unless you're completely dry. 3. Reacting to procs and buff windows. What makes Marksmanship click is how all of these systems interact through procs and short burst phases. Your Trueshot cooldown is where most of your big damage happens. It massively reduces the cooldown of aim shot and rapid fire, gives you extra critical strike power, and activates several talents that will help you snowball. You want to go all in during this window. In AoE situations, you'll also interact with Trick Shots, which is a passive that activates when you cast multi-shot. Trick Shots makes your next aim shot and rapid fire cleave nearby enemies, turning your single target damage into multi-target. And now that you understand the kit, let's talk hero talents, because which one you choose directly affects how your burst windows function, especially in Mythic Plus. Marksmanship has 2 hero talent options, Sentinel and Dark Ranger, and while both are strong, they shine in 2 different types of content. Sentinel is the go-to pick for Mythic Plus, offering passive AoE power and smoother cooldown flow. Dark Ranger is better suited for single-target raid encounters, where its controlled burst and utility can shine. Let's start with Sentinel, since this guide focuses on Mythic Plus gameplay. It focuses on building stacks of a passive debuff called Sentinel. Here's how it works. Your attacks have a chance to apply Sentinel stacks to your target up to 10. Once you pass 3 stacks, there's a chance they begin to implode, consuming 1 stack per second and dealing arcane damage over time. Every 30 seconds, your rapid fire triggers Lunar Storm at your target's location, dealing frequent AoE arcane damage for 12 seconds. Enemies inside the storm take 10% more damage from you. In short, Sentinel rewards consistent pressure and smart timing. You don't need to press any extra buttons. The passive value builds up as you play your normal rotation. And with Lunar Storm triggering every 30 seconds, you get consistent AoE layered into your normal rotation. Dark Ranger, on the other hand, adds more complexity and gives you tighter control over your burst. It replaces Kill Shot with Black Arrow. It deals shadow damage, which is okay I guess, but the damage just isn't there right now. Overall, when it comes to hero talents, Sentinel is the default pick for Mythic Plus. It's simple, strong, and has massive AoE power. Dark Ranger gives you control and defense, but it's slightly harder to execute and better for raid encounters. Once you've picked your hero talents, it's time to learn how to put it all together. Let's break it down in your actual rotation, starting with single target. Marksmanship single target rotation isn't overly complicated, but it does require you to manage precise shots, spend focus efficiently, and always play around Trueshot when it's ready. Here's your actual priority list, explained simply. Your top priority, use volley on cooldown if you have a talented. This places AoE at your target's location that rains arrows down for several seconds. Avoid using volley when the target is about to move, since the value comes from them standing in the AoE. Then cast rapid fire specifically to trigger Lunar Storm. If Lunar Storm is just about to come off cooldown, wait up to 7 seconds so rapid fire activates it at the perfect moment. Cast Trueshot as soon as it's ready. Ideally, pair it with a streamlined proc. So many things happen when you use Trueshot. Aim Shot and Rapid Fire have reduced cooldowns. Feathered Frenzy is a passive talent that automatically applies Spotter's Mark at the start of Trueshot, giving you an immediate boost. Thanks to Tensile Bowstring, consuming precise shots extends Trueshot's duration up to 5 extra seconds if you're efficient. And the Unerring Vision talent gives you 10% extra crit chance and 20% crit damage on top of what Trueshot brings, basically doubling the value. The next priority is to spend precise shots with Arcane Shot. Make sure you spend precise shot stacks before casting Aim Shot again, otherwise you'll overwrite them. But there is an exception. If you have Spotter's Mark and moving target up, just go for Aim Shot, even if you're holding precise shots. When you spend your precise shot stacks, the moving target talent kicks in, boosting Aim Shot's damage by 20% and granting you a streamline buff. Then you would want to use Rapid Fire on cooldown. It generates focus, has several talent synergies, activates Streamline, and helps Trueshot resets via the calling the shots if you're consuming Spotter's Mark. Then use Aim Shot on cooldown, ideally spend precise shots first, then cast Aim Shot. Use Explosive Shot if you have it talented. Explosive Shot is a short delay AoE that deals damage after a second. It's a decent filler when nothing else is ready, and otherwise just use Steady Shot as a filler. When facing with multiple enemies, most of your marksmanship rotation stays the same, but a few core priorities shift. Here is how AoE differs from single target. 1. Use Multi-Shot instead of Arcane Shot. In AoE, Multi-Shot replaces Arcane Shot as your main focus spender. It's how you consume precise shots and also activates Trick Shots, which is what allows Aim Shot and Rapid Fire to cleave. 2. Maintain Trick Shots at all time. Before every Aim Shot or Rapid Fire, make sure Trick Shots is active. You do this by casting Multi-Shot or by enemies standing in volley, which applies Trick Shots automatically every second while active. 3. You can hold Aim Shot briefly. In single target, you avoid capping Aim Shot. In AoE, it's sometimes better to hold it for a few seconds if Trick Shots isn't active yet. Firing Aim Shot without cleave is a much bigger loss in AoE. That's it, those are the only differences you need to care about. Everything else from the single target rotation carries over. Marksmanship Hunter rewards clean execution. If you manage your focus well, prep your cooldowns, and keep Trick Shots active in AoE, you'll put up massive numbers without ever needing a pet to do the work for you. Whether you're cleaning up big packs with Sentinel or lining up single target nukes with Dark Ranger, the core loop stays smooth once you get the rhythm down. If this guide helped you out, drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more World of Warcraft beginner-friendly guides. Let me know in the comments which spec you want to see next. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.